Ben DeLuca, thank you. And I'll try to keep this brief. I see a lot of people. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions here. So I was asked to talk about complete streets. I may deviate slightly from that, get into a little history, but I'm sure Mr. DeLuca will let me know if I'm going out of bounds here. Prior to 2009, the state took a car-centric approach towards design and construction. I think, it's not to say that pedestrians weren't considered, but it wasn't, the same emphasis as it is now. It was more car-centric. And what Complete Streets is really, it's looking at people of all age groups. It's looking at all modes of transportation, whether it's pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation, or motorists. And it's designing facilities that accommodate all of these uses. That's really what Complete Streets is. Um, I think certainly when you look at a street that's designed with complete streets, it operates more efficiently. It operates with more volume. It accommodates more people. By encouraging bicycles, for example, you could reduce congestion. So that's complete streets in a nutshell. We're going to get into it with the design, and Mr. Downey's going to present this, but I'm also going to provide comments. I'll talk very briefly about the history. And the township did incorporate a bike plan in 2010. I think it introduced more of those share the lane sharrows. And I think most bicyclists found that they weren't as effective as a dedicated lane. They prefer a dedicated lane. In 2012, the township passed their own complete streets policy. And in 2016 and 2017, the township performed municipal aid grants and reconstructed Parker Avenue. We did a number of pedestrian improvements, ramp upgrades at the intersections. That was from Irvington Ave to Prospect Street, over 2 municipal aid grants. In 2018 and 2019, we incorporated a Safe Routes to Schools program where we upgraded handicap ramps and incorporated push-button ped signs. In 2020, we reconstructed the concrete refuge island that's located at Boyden Avenue and made it more in Parker Avenue and made it more ADA compliant. And in 2023, we improved daylighting of the intersection of Parker and Orchard Road. In 2023, we also collected data, with dynamic for Parker Avenue, including speed and volume data, to come up with the bike plan that you see before you. In 24, we installed the 4-way stop sign at Parker, Burr, and Suffolk. So that'll give you a little context, a little history of where we're at. Why is Parker Avenue selected for complete streets? There's a number of reasons. It really connects a whole bunch of things. It connects the business corridor in Irvington Avenue. It connects St. Kim Church, Borden Park, the residential along Parker Avenue and surrounding streets, Clinton Elementary School, the Maplewood Jewish Center, Ethical Cultural Society, Prospect Street, CHS High School, commercial shops and buildings on West Parker, including the YMCA and the Gleason property. It also incorporates the overflow parking for CHS and the Greenway, which was constructed a part of it last year. And of course, it connects Maplewood Ave, which opens the doors for future bike lane improvements. I want to stress to everyone that bicycles are legal on our streets. They have a right to be in our streets, and that's part of the complete streets. If you take your time and look at the bike racks at CHS, you know that there's a lot of bikes being used. A lot of our student body are using bicycles. And I went the other day, there must have been 30 or 40 bikes. And this is when it was cold out. In the summertime, I'm sure that number goes up. I want to stress too that this plan is not just for bicycle safety. It squeezes the travel lanes and also performs traffic calming. It also enhances pedestrian safety by upgrading all the crosswalk striping and signage, and I think would be a significant improvement to the corridor. I think also, I just want to mention a few things on the plan, and we'll get into this more as well. With bike lanes, parking is not allowed. So it's going to have an inherent impact on parking, and we could get into that as well. But if you look at the corridor that we're focusing on tonight, the majority of it is no stopping and standing or is restricted parking during school days, for example. So just looking at it holistically, I think this project itself, when you look at the projects we've done in the past, this is truly a complete streets approach that we would be implementing for this road. And you'll see it in the design. Hopefully we can answer everyone's questions. With that, I think I'm going to have more comments. I may interject as Mr. Downey's given his presentation, but at this time, I'd like to present Patrick Downey.
Hold on, Paul, we're going to have Patrick Weary speak, the other Patrick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's all right.
Mr. Weary, I didn't mean to steal your spotlight there.
Thanks, Mr. Kidner, Mr. DeLuca. So I want to share the total bike network that we have planned for the town. This is obviously a concept at this stage, but it's can be a guiding document for how we build this out. Parker Ave being the first earliest one we have where we have dedicated bike lanes. And so I'll share that now. We'll just describe a little bit of our approach to this. So we first talked about this network as part of the 2010 plan that Mr. Kittner had referenced, and it looked to connect parks and schools, municipal amenities like the community center, the train station, our special improvement districts being Maplewood Village and Springfield Avenue. And so we looked at the most traveled roadways and also the size of the roadways. And the preference recently is to move towards dedicated bike lanes because they are the safest for the bikers and they do most for traffic calming. And so this is a public document that we can share, but it shows what could become bike lanes throughout Maplewood. And it also shows a legend where we look at the width of roadways needed for whether it be dedicated bike lanes with parking, just dedicated bike lanes, no parking, sharrows. And so we'll use this as we consider when to start to engage the public around future roadways for bike improvements. That could be like Parker Avenue when we're looking to do overall traffic improvements to either reduce speed, manage flows, increase pedestrian visibility, and that's what we've been talking about along Parker Avenue. It could be considered when we're looking to repave a roadway. So something like Prospect Street, where we expect to pave it in the coming years, we can now start to look at Prospect Street for, is it a viable candidate for bike lanes, and do we want to start engaging with the public in the process like we're doing now for Parker? It could be to connect to other infrastructure, like South Orange is bringing their greenway south to us, and it's going to connect through Jesuits Field. So we have an interest now in looking at network roadways along possibly Denell and past the train station. So there'll be a lot of different reasons why we begin to talk about roadways in different areas of town, but we want to have an overall map so that it'll guide our approach so that we roll this out somewhat methodically and with a plan for a larger bike network.
Thank you, Patrick.
That is all from me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Paul, I'm going to turn it right back to you again. We talk about dynamic traffic as being our traffic consultants. Could you just explain what that means and then introduce Patrick? And I don't know if John is here, but just to...
Sure. So, given the breadth of their experience, Dynamic Traffic has been selected as our professional service consulting engineer for traffic engineering. Now, we work closely with Dynamic on traffic designs. We have, complete oversight and work with them, provide input, but, we're relying on their expertise. I've known John McCormick for many, many years. And Mr. Downey, I've known him for a number of years now too, and I'm highly impressed with both of them. They're very good traffic engineers. Committeeman DeLuca, thank you. Paul Kittner, Township Engineer and Director of Public Works. It's truly a pleasure to be here. I think if you were part of our discussion last week, my presentation or discussion may sound very similar. I did change a few things around, and we had an opportunity to also listen to the public. And, your input, I think, was very valuable. So it certainly factored into our thoughts and part of this design. I'm going to start out by defining what complete streets are, and then I may go through some very recent history of Parker Ave. I'd also like to discuss why Parker Ave is selected as a complete street with a bike lane. And I'm going to go over some miscellaneous points. So without further ado, I know there's a lot of people here. We want to reserve as much time for question and answer as possible. Let's start by defining what complete streets are. I'll say that in the beginning, and this is prior to 2009, I would say DOT took a different approach towards design. All right, it was more car centric. I think the emphasis was on trying to get cars from point A to point B as quickly as possible, safely, but as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible. All right. And there was less, I would say, design emphasis on pedestrians, mass transit, and bicycles, right? All working together. So complete streets in 2009, the state adopted a complete streets policy where all of this was factored in. I think a light bulb went off and they said, something, we can really manage people and traffic flow much better when we consider everybody. We consider bikes, we can consider pedestrians, cars, trucks, mass transit, buses. So that's complete streets. When you actually come up with a design that factors all of these features into your design, okay? That's complete streets. I'll go over some very recent background history on Parker Avenue. So first of all, taking a step back, the township did pass in 2010 a bike plan for the whole township. Is done by Urbana Planning. And, this plan, although very well thought out, did not feature dedicated bike lanes. It had the sharrows. I think many of the cyclists would agree that sharrows are really not a substitute for bike lanes. And, I think overall, while it may have worked at that time, I think, people are looking for more with bike lanes. So the township passed our own complete streets in 2012 and our own policy. And that in many ways mimicked the model ordinance by the state, but it opened the doors for us to consider all of these things for complete streets. In 2016 and 2017, we used 2 years of municipal aid grants to pave Parker Avenue, and that was from Irvington Ave to Prospect Street. We used two rounds, 2 years of municipal aid grants to do this, to pave it. And that paving included many safety features. It included concrete upgrades, ramp upgrades, it included signage, striping, and these all enhanced the safety of the road. In 2018, 2019, we actually implemented a Safe Routes to Schools federal grant that we received, and that upgraded many of the ramps for pedestrians. It also included some curbing, sidewalk, and also the push button pedestrian crossing signs that you see that flash, the LED ones. In 2020, we reconstructed the refuge area by Parker and Boyden Avenue, and this was to accommodate ADA persons and make it more accessible. In 2023, we improved the intersection and daylighted the intersection of Parker Ave and Orchard Road. I believe that was in response to an incident or accident that occurred there. In 2023, we decided to collect more data on Parker Avenue, and we did that with the intention of performing traffic calming, which ultimately evolved into the bike plan that we have. And in 2024, we installed four-way stop signs at the intersection of Parker, Burr, and Suffolk. These are feature blinking stop signs as well. And I think in general, most of the public, from what I could gather, received that improvement, well. I'm going to go into why Parker Ave was selected for complete streets. and say a few words. First of all, it connects the business corridor in Irvington Ave to Valley Street. It also connects Clinton Elementary School and CHS High School. It connects our parks, Borden Park and Memorial Park, and connects our religious institutions, Maplewood Jewish Center, St. Andrew Kim Church. It has residential along the corridor and surrounding streets. And it's also used by the Ethical Cultural Society, the YMCA, the Gleason property, and serves as overflow parking for CHS, and also is a connector to the Greenway. And last but not least, Maplewood Ave is another destination point for our bike plan. If you look at the overall plan that the town came up with, Maplewood Ave also is part of that bike network as well. I'm just going to go over some miscellaneous points to make. And before I turn this over to Dynamic, I want to start by saying that bicycles are legal on our streets right now. All right. Bicycles are legal. They have right of way just as cars do on the streets. If you visit CHS during the pickups and drop-offs, you'll notice that there's a lot of kids biking to school. All right. Honestly, I was surprised at how many bicycles were going to the high school. And many of these kids, we believe, are taking Parker Avenue. Okay, Parker Avenue is a collector road, and but it's also used by many bicyclists. The plan that we're presenting tonight isn't just a bike lane plan. It's a comprehensive, complete streets safety plan for Parker Avenue. It actually includes traffic calming elements by squeezing the lanes to more narrow widths. It includes the bike lanes. It includes signage. It includes striping elements, crosswalks, enhanced pedestrian crossings. So comprehensively, I think it's an improvement, a significant improvement for Parker Avenue. And I guess the question is, why Parker Avenue and why not side streets? That's one of the questions that came up with residents. Why aren't you proposing a bike lane in the side streets? And the reason is many of the side streets have stop and go and reduced speeds compared to Parker, and frankly, they don't need bike lanes. There are people using Parker Ave right now, and for that reason, we should make it safer for people to use it. Parker Ave is also a direct route. It's a collector street, and it is, quite frankly, one of the fastest routes when you compare going from point A to point B. That's why people like to use it. So to conclude, I just want to say that, I think the plan itself it deserves a lot of review. It certainly deserves a lot of careful consideration. I think Dynamic did a very thoughtful plan with this. We do have other plans for the high school and drop-offs, and we're working with them right now on that. So we're perfecting these things. But with that, I think I've taken enough time. I'm now going to turn this over to, I believe, Mr. Downey. Or are you going, Mr. Paul Kittner, Township Engineer and Director of Public Works? It's truly a pleasure to be here tonight. I want to thank everyone for taking their time out to listen to this presentation. I'm going to try to keep my summary as brief as possible, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Weary and then Mr. Downey. I am going to talk about complete streets. I'm going to go through some of the history and background on Parker Avenue. I'm going to go over why Parker Avenue was selected for complete streets, and talk about just some miscellaneous items, some things that we picked up from prior meetings and other things that I just want to stress during this meeting. So if you've attended the prior two meetings, I apologize in advance that you have to listen to me talk again, but hopefully it's not too painful. So what are complete streets? The state started off very car-centric in their design to highway projects and road projects. The focus was how quickly and efficiently can we get a car or a truck from point A to point B the fastest, most efficient way. And there was not as much thought into pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, There wasn't as much thought into mass transit, transportation, buses, trains, etc. So the state recognized that people of all ages and people of all types have rights to use whatever method they want to get from point A to point B. And that could be walking, that could be bicycling, that could be taking mass transit, and that could also be taking, being a motorist and driving a car. So Complete Streets is really designing a roadway facility to accommodate all user groups of all ages, right? That's what Complete Streets is. It's not just a car-centric highway design. It's all users of all ages. So, in 2009, the state adopted a Complete Streets policy, and that really changed their approach towards, roadway design and highway design. I'm going to demonstrate how this project meets the Complete Streets criteria and approach. But first, I want to get into maybe a little history and background. So I had mentioned, I think in 2009, the state adopted their Complete Streets policy. The township followed suit by passing in 2010 a bicycle plan for our township. It was done by Urbana, and they took a very good approach towards overall the township's bicycle plan. The problem is the plan did not factor dedicated bike lanes, and it really called exclusively for these bicycle sharrows. That's people sharing the lanes with traffic. And while that's perfectly legal and fair, I think in talking with a lot of our bicycle groups and getting feedback, they wanted some more protection and they wanted that in a form of a bike lane. So, so the 2010 study, when you compare it to our needs now, it really does fall short. I think, in 2012, the township passed their own Complete Streets policy. That was through Resolution 51-12. And Parker Avenue did receive some upgrades. In 2016 and 2017, we dedicated 2 years of municipal aid funding to pave Parker from Irvington Ave all the way to Prospect Street. In 2018 and 2019, we applied for, received a federal grant for Safe Routes to Schools, and we constructed various sidewalk and concrete improvements along Parker Avenue and around Clinton Elementary. A lot of those improvements included the push button pedestrian signs, which blink and they're solar mounted. You've probably seen those. In 2020, we reconstructed the concrete refuge area to make it ADA compliant at Boyden and Parker. And in 2023, we daylighted the intersection of Parker Avenue and Orchard Road. That was in response to an accident that occurred, and we were trying to make it safer. In 2023, we collected more data on Parker Avenue in the form of traffic calming to reduce speeding. And that data, in combination with the plans, evolved and turned into the bike plan that you're going to see before you tonight. In 2024, we installed the always stop at Parker Burr in Suffolk, and I think most of the feedback we've received was positive with respect to that. So why was Parker Avenue selected for Complete Streets approach? First of all, it's a collector road. And what is a collector road? It carries a larger amount of traffic than your typical neighborhood street. It connects a bunch of neighborhood streets. It connects the business corridor on Irvington Ave to Valley Street. Our schools, Clinton Elementary and CHS High School, our parks, Borden Park and Memorial Park, our religious institutions, Maplewood Jewish Center, St. Andrew Kim Church. It's also got tremendous residential along the corridor and side streets. It also has other uses that connect to it, such as the Ethical Cultural Society, the YMCA, and the Gleason property. It also connects the overflow parking for CHS and the recent greenway that was installed last year. And last but not least, it connects Maplewood Avenue, which is also part of our expanded bike network. So bicycles, I just want to emphasize a couple things that maybe not all of us are thinking about, but I think it's important to note. bicycles are legal on the streets now. So they have the right to use our streets, our local streets, and they're legal. And people, by the way, are using them. If you go to CHS, the parking lot, before school lets out, you're going to see a lot of bikes there. I was surprised when I checked it. And it's good to see that. A lot of people are biking. And a lot of these people are using Parker Avenue, by the way. So it just makes sense to incorporate a bike lane here, which could make it safer for them. All right. But, the bike plan doesn't just accommodate bicycles and cyclists. It's a traffic calming project. It squeezes the lanes, the travel lanes, as Mr. DeLuca said, to 10 to 11 feet. And really, it's 10 feet. We revised it. So it squeezes the traffic even further. And the bike lanes are 5 to 7 feet throughout. Mr. Downey's going to explain that once I introduce him. So it has a tendency to slow traffic down. It's a significant safety enhancement for our community. It also improves pedestrian safety by enhancing crosswalk striping and signage. And I think some of the questions that we received in the past prior meetings were, why don't you incorporate a bike lane on side streets that are less traveled, that, have a lot of stop and go? Bicyclists like to go from point A to point B in the most efficient means possible. They don't want to stop and go if that's possible, because it takes too long. And it's a direct route, Parker Ave, because it's a collector road. And that's more of a reason why we need bike lanes on this street. I think Mr. DeLuca spoke about snow and leaves, the jitney stops. I just want to compliment many of the residents that were on the calls the prior two meetings. You brought up some really good suggestions, very thoughtful, and I was really impressed with a lot of the feedback we received. So I just want to thank the residents who took the time for that. And we're going to carefully consider all of these recommendations that we've recorded, and we're going to try to incorporate it into the plan to make it the best plan possible. I think that's what I want to talk about at this moment. Mr. DeLuca, do you want me to introduce Mr. Weary?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to introduce our Township Administrator, Patrick Weary, and he's going to talk a little about the overall township bike plan and other things as well. Mr. Weary?